Have you ever, tried to change a really stubbornly entrenched habit? Or, tried to convince someone else to change theirs, only to just hit an absolute brick wall? You throw every logical fact at the problem, but knowledge alone just doesn't seem to motivate real change.
Yeah, it's a super common trap. We assume humans run on pure logic, right? That if we just highlight the risks clearly enough, a switch will flip. But human psychology is actually incredibly protective of its own autonomy.
Right, which is why today's mission is to bypass those defenses. We're doing a deep dive into the specific psychological tools used by forensic mental health experts, specifically drawing from the work of Kevin O'Doherty. We want to see how they evoke genuine, lasting behavior change through something called motivational interviewing, or, MI.
Right, so MI was originally pioneered by clinical psychologists William R. Miller and Stephen Rolnick, mostly to help people navigate addiction. And its core philosophy is, well, it's fascinating because it completely abandons the whole tough love approach.
Wait, so no tough love at all?
Exactly. Instead of wrestling someone into submission, the practitioner's goal is to actually dance with them.
See, I hear dancing, and my instinct is to immediately push back. Like, if someone is making really destructive choices, dancing sounds a bit passive. Don't you sometimes just need to wrestle them away from the metaphorical cliff?
Yeah, that is the instinctive reaction. But to understand why wrestling backfires, we really have to look at the mechanics of ambivalence.
Ambivalence, right.
Yeah, because in psychology, ambivalence isn't apathy. It's actually this intensely conflicted state of simultaneously wanting to change and fiercely not wanting to change.
Well, so they are actively fighting themselves.
Exactly. So if you take the pro-change side and start wrestling, the other person's brain automatically takes the anti-change side just to protect their autonomy. They literally talk themselves out of the very thing you want them to do.
Oh, wow. It's like pushing a heady pendulum. The harder you shove it away from you, the harder it swings back to hit you in the face.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. So to guide that pendulum rather than pushing it, MI practitioners use this specific set of tools known as ORs. That stands for open-ended questions, affirmation, reflective listening, and summarizing.
Okay, let's focus on reflective listening for a second. Because honestly, how do professionals use that without it sounding like a cheap parlor trick?
What do you mean by parlor trick?
Well, people are pretty savvy, They can usually tell when someone puts on a condescending therapy voice and just repeats their exact words back to them.
Oh, right. Yeah. When it's just repeating words, it absolutely falls flat. The strategic depth of reflective listening actually lies in a technique called developing discrepancy.
Developing discrepancy. Okay, how does that work?
Well, you aren't just echoing them. You are selectively reflecting the tension between a person's core values and their current behavior. By holding up a mirror to that gap, you create cognitive dissonance.
Because the brain hates that friction, right?
Exactly. It naturally wants to resolve it.
So it's kind of like showing someone their own bank statement when they claim their biggest goal is saving for a house, but they're dropping like $500 a month on takeout.
Yeah, exactly that.
You don't have to yell at them about their spending because the math does the yelling. You're just placing the numbers on the table.
That is the exact mechanism. You might say something like, help me understand. On one hand, your financial independence is your top priority, but on the other hand, it's really tough to skip those daily takeout orders.
I see. So you force them to reconcile that gap themselves, which engages their own critical thinking.
Right. But, even if you master that gentle reflection, people still get defensive. The fear of change runs really deep.
Yeah. So what happens when the pushback inevitably comes?
That's when you practice what O'Doherty calls rolling with resistance. A direct argument triggers that fight or flight response we mentioned earlier.
So you just agree with them?
Not exactly. When you roll with resistance, you don't fight back, but you simply acknowledge their reluctance without judgment. This ties heavily into the stages of change model.
Because change isn't a straight line from ignoring a problem to fixing it, right?
Exactly. It's a very messy looping cycle. People move from pre-contemplation to planning to action. But a crucial part of this model is how it treats relapse.
Which usually crushes people.
Yeah, because they view it as a total failure of character, which prompts them to just give up entirely. But in MI, relapse is explicitly mapped out as a highly common, almost expected part of the journey.
Oh, I love that. By mapping relapse as a normal stage of the process, you kind of strip away the shame.
Right, exactly.
It's not a failure that requires throwing your hands up in defeat. It's just a data point.
Yeah.
Like it shows you what triggered the slip-up so you can plan better for the next loop.
That is the profound shift of MI. Enduring behavior change requires leaving the judge and jury behind. You're constantly building up their belief in their own capability, their self-efficacy, rather than stripping it away with demands.
It really reframes how we communicate. So for you listening, think about a personal habit you're currently struggling to break.
Yeah, ask yourself, have you been playing the harsh judge and jury with yourself?
Exactly. Maybe it's time to try dancing with your own ambivalence instead of wrestling it.
And, take that concept of bypassing resistance a step further. Think about the algorithms on your social media feeds.
Oh, wow. Where are you going with this?
Well, the most sophisticated ones don't wrestle you by demanding you change your views or buy a product immediately. They use principles really similar to developing discrepancy. They subtly dance with your existing preferences and ambivalence to slowly shift your behavior over time without ever triggering your defenses.
Okay, that is slightly terrifying, but also brilliant. So next time you find your habit shifting without realizing why, ask yourself, who is leading the dance?